The Lost Wanderer. The old train station had been abandoned for years. At least, that's what people said. But that night, under the pale light of a flickering lamp, a young man named Adrian sat alone on a wooden bench, his head buried in his hands. He was 23. His face looked older, worn down by disappointments, the way a candle burns out too quickly when the wind keeps blowing on it. In his pocket, he kept a crumpled note someone had once sent him online after listening to his music. "You'll never make it. Stop trying." Those words had become his shadow. Adrian used to dream big. He wanted to be a musician. He wrote songs late at night, pouring his heart into every line. He believed music could heal, inspire, maybe even change the world. But the world hadn't believed in him. His father told him to get a real job. His friends drifted away. And when he finally shared his first song online, hoping people would understand, all he got were cruel comments, mockery, and silence. So here he was, at midnight, on an abandoned platform. He wasn't waiting for anyone. He wasn't waiting for anything. Or so he thought. The arrival. At first, he heard it as a low hum, like a memory of thunder rolling far away. Then came the sharp, chilling whistle, so loud it rattled his bones. Adrian lifted his head. There, cutting through the fog, a beam of golden light appeared on the tracks. It grew larger, brighter, closer, until the impossible became real. A train. But this wasn't any ordinary train. Its engine was blackened by soot, its body scarred by time. Steam hissed around its wheels, like the breath of some giant beast. And yet, the train looked alive. Its windows glowed with a warm, golden light. Adrian froze. "This station's been closed for years," he whispered to himself. "No trains come here." And yet the train screeched to a halt right in front of him. The doors creaked open. Nobody called his name. Nobody beckoned him inside. But something unseen pulled him forward. Adrian's chest tightened. He hesitated. But deep down, he knew, if he stayed, nothing in his life would ever change. So, trembling, he stepped onto the train. Inside the train. The air was different the moment he entered. Warm. Safe. Like stepping into another world. The interior looked nothing like the rusted exterior. The walls were lined with polished wood, lamps glowed softly, and the seats were covered in velvet. It felt like he had walked into a memory, not a machine. The train jolted. It was moving again. Adrian slowly made his way into the first carriage. Only one passenger sat there, an old man, hunched over, scribbling in a notebook. His hands trembled as he wrote, and every so often he wiped at his eyes with a worn handkerchief. Adrian sat across from him, unsure if he should speak. The old man looked up. His eyes, though tired, carried a strange spark. A knowing kind of light. "You're new here," the man said softly. His voice was cracked but warm. "Where are you headed?" Adrian swallowed. I don't know." The old man gave a faint smile. None of us did. He closed his notebook, resting it on his lap. "Would you like to hear my story?" Adrian hesitated, then nodded. "The teacher's story." The old man leaned back, his voice drifting between sorrow and memory. "I was a teacher, once. A small-town schoolteacher. I didn't have much in life, no fortune, no fame, but I loved my students. I taught them to dream. To believe in themselves. I told them they could be doctors, engineers, artists, anything." His eyes glistened. "But I never told myself the same. I spent so much time pushing others forward that I forgot to move myself. I gave everything I had away, my time, my energy, my heart. And when I grew old, I realized I had nothing left. My wife passed away. My son moved to the city and never looked back. I waited for visits, for calls, but they never came. One night, I sat alone, wondering if my life had meant anything at all. And then..." He gestured around the carriage. "This train found me. The old man opened his notebook, carefully tearing out a page. He handed it to Adrian. Adrian read the words. Be grateful, always. The world may not return what you give, but it remembers. And never forget your own dreams, because if you abandon them, you abandon half your life. Adrian's chest tightened. His hands shook as he folded the note. The old man smiled faintly. Remember, young one, being lost doesn't mean your journey is over. Sometimes being lost is what leads you to the right path. The train gave a sudden jolt. Adrian blinked. And the old man was gone. The seat was empty. The notebook lay closed, untouched. Adrian's thoughts. Adrian sat frozen, his mind racing. Was it real? Was he dreaming? But he couldn't deny what he felt. Those words, the old man's story, burned inside him. If you abandon your dreams, you abandon half your life. For the first time in months, maybe years, something stirred in Audrey. Tears and hope. The train moved steadily through the night, its wheels singing a lonely song against the tracks. Outside, fog wrapped around the world like a curtain. But inside, the lamps glowed warm, casting long shadows across the velvet seats. Adrian gripped the folded note the old man had given him. The words still echoed in his mind. If you abandon your dreams, you abandon half your life. He didn't know why, but the weight inside his chest felt lighter now. Still there, yes, but lighter. The door to the next carriage stood open, spilling a golden glow. Something in that light called to him. He stepped through. The single mother. The next carriage smelled faintly of lavender. The lamps here were dimmer, softer, like candlelight. In the corner sat a woman in her late 30s, holding a worn blanket in her lap. She looked exhausted, her hair unkempt, dark circles under her eyes, but her hands stroked the blanket as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. She looked up as Adrian entered. Her eyes were tired, but kind. Another traveler, she whispered. Come, sit. Adrian slid into the seat across from her. For a moment, silence filled the space between them. Then the woman smiled faintly, though her lips trembled. Do you know what it means to give up everything for someone else? She asked softly. Adrian shook his head. The woman pressed the blanket to her chest. I do. I'm a mother. A single mother. My little boy was the light of my life. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to keep food on the table. I went without sleep, without comfort, without dreams, because his dreams mattered more. Her voice cracked. But the world is cruel sometimes. My boy got sick. The kind of sickness money can't fix. I begged doctors. I begged strangers. I gave everything. But in the end, her hands trembled against the blanket. Tears welled in her eyes. He was gone. Just like that. My purpose, my reason to fight, gone. Adrian's throat tightened. He wanted to say something, anything, but no words came. The woman looked down at the blanket, stroking it gently. I thought my life had ended with his. I thought there was nothing left. But then, one night, this train came. And it showed me something. She lifted her gaze to Adrian. Her tears glistened in the lamplight. I realized my boy's life wasn't lost. He lived inside me, in every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every ounce of love I gave. And though he's gone, the love remains. Love never dies. That's what keeps me going. She handed Adrian the blanket. It was small, worn, with little stars embroidered along the edges. Remember this, she whispered. Sacrifice is not wasted. Love is never wasted. Even if the world doesn't see it, it matters. It always matters. Adrian held the blanket carefully, as though it were alive. He felt warmth radiating from it, not just fabric but something deeper, love stitched into every thread. When he looked up, the woman was gone. Only the faint smell of lavender remained. The war veteran. The train rocked gently, and the golden door ahead opened again. Adrian carried the blanket as he stepped into the next carriage. This one was darker, quieter. The lamps flickered. The air smelled faintly of smoke and metal, like a battlefield long forgotten. A man sat alone near the window. Broad shoulders, shaved head, heavy boots. He wore a military jacket, frayed at the edges. His eyes stared into the night beyond the glass, haunted. Adrian sat nearby, uncertain if he should disturb him. The man spoke without turning. "You hear it too, don't you?" Adrian frowned. "Hear what?" "The echoes. The screams. The things that never leave." His voice was gravel, low and heavy. He turned, and Adrian saw the deep scars across his face. Eyes full of pain. "I was a soldier," the man said simply. "I fought wars that weren't mine to fight. I watched friends fall beside me. I carried their names home, but not their bodies." His hands clenched into fists. "Everyone called me a hero. They shook my hand. They thanked me for my service. But at night, when I closed my eyes, all I saw were the faces of the dead. The ones I couldn't save. The ones who saved me instead." He stared at his hands, trembling. "I came back alive, but not whole. My family didn't understand. My friends had moved on. I was alone with ghosts for company." Adrian felt his chest ache. He had never fought a war, but he understood the feeling of being broken, forgotten. The soldier finally looked at him. "Do you know what this train showed me?" Adrian shook his head. The man's eyes softened, just slightly. "It showed me that survival itself is an honor. That the scars we carry aren't weakness, they're proof we endured. Proof we lived when others couldn't." He leaned forward, gripping Adrian's shoulder. His hand was heavy, strong. "Listen to me, kid. Don't waste your second chances. Don't drown in guilt or failure. Every breath you take is borrow. Dreams and struggles." The train's steady rhythm felt like a heartbeat. Clack clack, clack clack. Adrian sat quietly, holding the small blanket from the mother and the medal from the soldier. These tokens weren't just objects, they felt like pieces of wisdom, carried in cloth and steel. The old man had taught him not to abandon his dreams. The mother had shown him love never dies. The soldier had reminded him that scars are proof of survival. Each story carved something new inside him, filling the emptiness he had once carried. The golden light of the next door glowed brighter than before. Adrian stood, his steps heavier with thought, and crossed into the third carriage. The failed artist. This carriage smelled faintly of paint and turpentine. The walls were covered in sketches and canvases, taped haphazardly. Some were vibrant, full of life, others torn, smudged, unfinished. In the middle of it all sat a man in his 40s, paint-stained clothes, hair wild, eyes red from sleepless nights. He stared at a canvas in front of him, brush frozen in his hand. He didn't notice Adrian at first. His lips moved silently, muttering words no one else could hear. Finally, he turned. His smile was tired, almost broken. "Another visitor," he said softly. "Do you know what it feels like to pour your soul into something, and watch the world look away?" Adrian swallowed. "Yes." The artist gave a sad chuckle. "Then you know my life. I painted, I sculpted, I created, everything inside me spilled out onto canvas. But galleries shut their doors. Critics laughed. Friends told me to give up." He dragged the brush across the canvas, leaving a black smear. "I thought talent was enough. It wasn't. I thought passion was enough. It wasn't. And when rejection piled up, I thought I wasn't enough." His voice trembled. "One night, I decided to burn my work. To erase myself completely. But before the flames touched the canvas, this train appeared." He looked at Adrian, eyes shining with sudden intensity. "It showed me something. That art isn't about recognition. It isn't about applause. It's about the human heart refusing to stay silent. Every brushstroke, every note, every word, it matters. Even if only one soul feels it, it matters. The artist handed Adrian a small sketch. It was simple, a single candle, glowing in darkness. "Take this," he whispered. "Because that's what we are. A candle in the dark. Even if the world doesn't notice, even if the room is vast, we still burn. Don't stop burning." Adrian's throat ached. He tucked the sketch close to his chest. When he looked up, the artist was gone. Only the faint smell of turpentine remained. The poor laborer. The train rocked, and Adrian moved into the next section. This carriage was plain, no velvet seats, no decorations. Just worn wooden benches. A man sat there, his hands rough and calloused, his clothes dusty and torn. His back was bent, his face weathered, but his eyes were steady. He glanced at Adrian and nodded. "Sit." Adrian obeyed. "I built houses," the man said simply. His voice was deep, steady, like the ground itself. "Brick by brick, beam by beam. Other men dreamed in offices, but I dreamed with my hands. I never had much. No riches. No name. But every home I built gave someone shelter. A roof when it rained. Walls to keep children safe. That was my work. That was my purpose." He flexed his cracked hands. "But the world doesn't remember men like me. No one knows my name. When I grew too old to work, people passed me by. As if I had never existed." Adrian felt a pang of guilt. He had never thought about the men who built the world around him, the homes, the bridges, the roads. The laborer looked at him firmly. "This train taught me something, boy. It's not about being remembered. It's about what you leave behind. Every house I built stands even now, protecting families. My legacy is not my name, it's the lives I touched." He pulled something from his pocket and pressed it into Adrian's hand. It was a small stone, worn smooth. "Even the smallest stone matters," he said. "Without stones, no wall stands. Without people like me, no world stands. Remember that." Adrian clutched the stone. It felt heavy with meaning. When he looked up again, the laborer was gone. The heartbroken lover. The next carriage was filled with soft music. A faint melody played on a piano somewhere, though no one was there. At the far end sat a young man, not much older than Adrian. His suit was wrinkled, his tie undone. He held a photo in his hand, staring at it as though it were the last piece of light in the world. Adrian approached slowly. "Who is she?" he asked. The young man smiled weakly. "The love of my life. Or so I thought." He exhaled shakily. "We met young. She was my everything. I wrote her letters, I dreamed of our future. I thought nothing could break us. But life doesn't care about fairy tales. She left. She chose someone else. And I was left with nothing but a photo and a broken heart." His voice cracked. "I wanted to die. I thought love had destroyed me. But this train, it showed me the truth. Love doesn't destroy us. Expectations do. Love is still beautiful, even when it ends. What I felt was real. What I gave was real. That's enough." He placed the photo in Adrian's hand. "Don't be afraid to love, even if it breaks you. Because a broken heart is proof you were alive enough to feel." Adrian felt his chest tighten as he looked at the smiling face in the photo. He thought of his own loneliness, his own fear of reaching out, of being rejected. When he lifted his eyes, the young man was gone. The piano fell silent. Adrian's burden, Adrian's light. Adrian sat alone in the carriage, surrounded by tokens. The note from the teacher. The blanket from the mother. The medal from the soldier. The sketch from the artist. The stone from the laborer. The photo from the lover. Each one heavy. Each one sacred. He closed his eyes, and for the first time, he felt something strange. Not despair. Not emptiness. Strength. The weight of countless lives. The lessons of countless souls. All carried within him now. The train shook. The golden door ahead opened wider than ever, pouring light so bright it filled the carriage. Adrian rose, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from anticipation. The final story awaited. The true journey. The train seemed quieter now. Almost reverent. The wheels rolled softer against the tracks, as if the journey itself knew it was nearing its end. Adrian stood in the glow of the golden door, clutching the tokens he had gathered, the note, the blanket, the medal, the sketch, the stone, the photo. Each one carried a voice. Each one carried a lesson. And yet, deep inside, he knew there was still one story left. He stepped through the final door. The beggar. This carriage was not golden or grand. It was dim, cold, with wooden floors bare of carpet. At the far end sat a man in rags. His hair was tangled, his beard wild, his skin worn from years of hunger and hardship. A beggar. He sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, palms resting on his knees. Adrian hesitated, then whispered, "Sir?" The beggar opened his eyes. They were clear, brighter than any he had ever seen. "You've carried many burdens," the beggar said softly. "But have you carried yourself?" Adrian frowned. "What do you mean?" The beggar gestured to the tokens in Adrian's hands. "You've gathered their lessons. Their sacrifices. Their pain. But what about your story? What about the boy who almost gave up before this train arrived?" Adrian froze. He had never thought of himself as someone worth remembering. His life felt small compared to theirs. "I'm no hero," he whispered. The beggar's voice was firm. "You don't need to be a hero. You just need to be human. Your story matters not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. The world doesn't need flawless people. It needs real ones, carrying scars, carrying hope." The beggar reached into his ragged cloak and pulled out nothing. Just his hand. Empty. And yet, when he extended it, Adrian felt something placed into his palm. A weightless token, invisible but undeniable. "The greatest gift," the beggar said, "is not what the world gives you, but what you give yourself, forgiveness. Until you forgive yourself, you cannot move forward." Adrian's throat tightened. Tears welled in his eyes. For years, he had carried guilt over failure, over missed chances, over not being enough. He dropped to his knees, clutching the invisible gift to his heart. For the first time, he whispered words he had never said aloud. "I forgive myself." The beggar smiled. And in that smile, Adrian saw peace. When he looked up, the beggar was gone. The reflection. The train slowed. Adrian felt it in his bones. The journey was nearly over. Ahead was one final door. He pushed it open, and found himself staring into a mirror. The carriage was empty except for him. His own reflection, standing across from him. The reflection looked stronger, brighter, eyes steady. The Adrian he wished he could be. "Why are you here?" Adrian asked. The reflection stepped closer. "Because you needed me. You've heard their stories. You've carried their lessons. But now, you must face the truth, none of it matters if you don't believe in yourself." Adrian clenched his fists. "But I've failed so many times." The reflection cut him off. "Failure is not the end. It is the beginning. Every story you heard, the mother, the soldier, the artist, the laborer, the lover, they all failed. They all broke. And yet they endured. Why do you think you're different?" Adrian's breath trembled. He thought of the bridge where he had almost ended his life. The loneliness, the emptiness. The reflection's eyes softened. "You were never weak. You were never worthless. You were just human. And being human is enough." Tears spilled down Adrian's face. Slowly, the reflection reached forward. And when Adrian lifted his hand, their palms pressed together, flesh against glass, real against reflection. The glass shimmered. And suddenly, the reflection wasn't across from him. It was inside him. Whole. Complete. The end of the line. The train screeched softly. Outside the window, dawn broke. The first light of morning spilled across the horizon, painting the world in gold. The train slowed to a stop. Adrian rose, clutching the tokens close to his chest. But when he looked down, he realized something strange. The tokens were gone. The note, the blanket, the medal, the sketch, the stone, the photo all vanished. And yet, he felt them inside him. Every lesson, every tear, every heartbeat. Not lost, absorbed. The door opened. A breeze swept in, carrying the scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers. Adrian stepped out. He stood on solid ground again, but he was not the same boy who had stepped onto the bridge that night. He was alive. Truly alive. Behind him, the train gave a low whistle. When he turned to look, it was gone. As if it had never been. But the warmth in his chest told him otherwise. Adrian took a deep breath. The sky stretched wide before him. For the first time in years, he felt something pure, something unshakable. Hope. Epilogue. In the years to come, Adrian would live differently. He would work, fail, rise, love, and lose, but never again would he carry the weight of despair alone. He would remember the teacher's wisdom. The mother's love. The soldier's scars. The artist's fire. The laborer's strength. The lover's courage. The beggar's forgiveness. And he would carry his own story too, not as shame, but as light. Because every life is a story. And every story is worth telling.